The Dark and Darker cease and desist situation has been developing over on the Dark and Darker Discord. Iron Mace, the developer of Dark and Darker, recently posted a response to the several claims that Nexon has made against them, including a cease and desist letter sent to Steam that caused the game's page to be removed and the game taken down from the Steam store completely. I can't even do my weekly routine of hoping they accidentally release the next playtest early by checking the Steam store. Nexon did all this by making claims that Iron Mace stole assets from Nexon and the code was stolen to make the game as quickly as it has come together over at Iron Mace, as well as the idea that the game was plagiarized from an unreleased project named P3 that some of the developers over at Nexon were working before they left and joined the team that founded Iron Mace. Nexon's statement to Iron Mace includes the language here. Dark and Darker appears to have been built and developed using trade secrets and copyrighted information copied and stolen from Nexon. Iron Mace has responded to this saying the claims are baseless, and they go on to provide some proof and their own investigation that they show. They basically cover a couple of points here. Nexon claims one of the devs at Iron Mace took assets using a personal server while he was working at Nexon. Iron Mace basically says the dev has written authorized permission to set up a personal server because of certain circumstances that he was advised to refrain from using them after about a year because of a work situation around COVID and remote work. The employee agreed to take down the server as long as it didn't affect his employees that were coming into the office during the remote work. This employee then started the process of taking down the server, but it was a low priority, and it hung around for a while, running some automated scripts for the team he was on. The building his team went into was shut down for some COVID cases, and he decided to use the personal servers again to keep his team working efficiently. Nexon during this time had a management system for company assets and using personal equipment, so they had to have known, and their security team had to have known, that this was still in operation during this entire time. No warnings for the security team were received during this period, so the employee took this as an acceptance of what was working for his team to continue. This employee then left in Nexon June 2021 because working at Nexon was apparently pretty terrible and uncertain because of how frequently big projects and ideas were cancelled. And the higher-ups and the employees were not certain of their jobs. Upon leaving, he decided to tell his team that he was going to leave and join Iron Mace.
That's a great idea!
And 29 of his team members decided to follow him. Once this happened, Nexon went corpo crazy and added an audit team to accuse him of stealing files and sue him. Pretty basic standard corporation intimidation and strong-arming here, I think. And then the case has been ongoing since, so this guy's been tied up in legal matters for at least the last 2 years. A second claim that was made in the DMCA was also that Iron Mace hired this employee knowing that he had this stolen stuff, and they hired him because he planned to use it in Dark and Darker. The founder of Iron Mace anticipated this on hiring him, so he's been pushing high levels of diligence and making everything as by the book as possible to get this future claim kind of under control right from the get-go. Now we get into the really ridiculous stuff. The other claim is that Nexon made is the only way that Iron Mace could have possibly come up with a game like Dark and Darker, or the P3 project that they say it's based on, is to have stolen this idea from Nexon. So Iron Mace is basically like, are you for real? This was shown off in August 2021 to a media showcase. Blogs and articles were written about it around the internet and posted all over Korean media. Another claim here is in the takedown notice that there were no other games that had the same concept, genre, and plot as the P3 game. So, just to clarify here, the concept is an extraction game. The genre is high fantasy, and as far as I can tell, there isn't much plot besides the thematic settings of each of the levels, which there are only 2 so far, which is a goblin cave and an old castle with skeletons and wraiths. Which I know are incredibly unique ideas that couldn't have possibly come from any other media, but, whatever. And then the final claim here is that Iron Mace couldn't have developed Dark and Darker so quickly without stealing code from Nexon's project. And this is where Iron Mace kind of claps back, saying, the way you built a team was stupid, so we did it better. We started off with a bigger team, did it faster, and then used a bunch of store-bought assets that made our development process much simpler and much faster. And that's where a lot of our resources and expenses came from. And then there's a quote that they say here. Since key members of Iron Mace were also on the development team of the P3 project and know how quickly and haphazardly the P3 project was built, if anything, using assets, design, and code built for that project would have been a hindrance rather than a benefit to the development of Dark and Darker. Basically saying, lol, your game sucks so much that if we stole your code, it would have made our game worse and slower to develop. And then the last part of this claim is debunking the claims of the stolen assets. So they basically said 2,338 files were listed in the takedown notice. And they basically broke down in their Discord post how each of them were not what they were saying they were. 1,306 of these are because the game uses the same engine, so I'm assuming that's the Unreal Engine. 1,032 of these were similar or the same file names, but that's because 950 of them were purchased from the same place on the Unreal Marketplace and then licensed legally. And then the 82 remaining, which is actually 41 because they make duplicates because of their file paths and their different extensions based on the file types, are because of industry standard naming conventions that might appear in a first-person high fantasy dungeon crawler. And then just for fun here, the Iron Mace team posted a ChatGPT creation of a generic dungeon crawler PvP RPG because of the claim that Nexon thinks Dark and Darker could not have come from, or the idea could not have been conceived without stealing it from Nexon. So, ChatGPT sends this basic idea of what a dungeon crawler PvP RPG is, and it basically describes Dark and Darker, with no extra information. I don't know exactly what the prompt was that they put in, but I don't think they included that. But it's basically anything D&D, Dark and Darker, Dungeons and Dragons, any high fantasy setting. This is basically exactly what is shown here. As this whole situation develops, I'll keep an eye on it and I'll let you know. That's it. See ya.